Check this out. I think I need a new clutch fan. Got some play in it. It's not the water pump. This is the fan itself. But got a better used one. I replaced this on my, can't see it, here. I replaced that one on my old Trailblazer because I thought there was something wrong with it. But it was nothing wrong with it. It was a broken wire. So I saved that because that was working. When I took it off the old Trailblazer, it was working. So I saved it because they're expensive. So now, 3 years later, I get to use it. And I don't have to spend any money. So that's one thing I'm going to replace today. The fan clutch, the tensioner, the idle pulley, spark plugs, both wheel bearings in the front. That's my Sunday today. So hang with me. Removing the fan clutch. This is the absolute easiest way if you got compressed air in your garage. Get one of those air hammers from Harbor Freight or somewhere else and get a long, whatever it's called this. I don't remember the English word for it. If you get the long one, it's easier. It works with the short one too, but for me, it's a little bit harder. So I always use the long one. But this is the easiest way to remove the fan clutch if you have compressed air. So we put it down here, go from this side. Just on the edge of the nut. And just hammer it a little bit. And you notice, I don't even have the belt on. And I don't have a 36mm wrench. So I just use a crescent wrench. And off it comes. There. I removed the 4 bolts to hold the fan, so it's easier to get the clutch off the water pump. So, I know it's a pain in the ass to get the shroud past the radiator tip here. So what I usually do, take my sawzall and cut an opening in the fan shroud so I can lift it straight up. I mean, you can do it with a normal hacksaw if you want to. I do it for the future. If I need to take this off again later on, it's already an opening there. I don't have any problems, just lift it up. So, let's do some sewing. Not sewing. Sewing. Saw, sewing. Is sewing, that's mean two words like saw and sewing with clothes? Oh, I guess. Be careful so you don't hit the radiator. Notice I put a piece of wood here to stretch it out as much as possible so I don't hit the radiator. Get these lines off the cloud. And there you go. Everything comes out with it. And now it's much easier to replace the pulley and the tensioner. And usually I put the hose back on for it to stop dripping. If I wasn't filming, that would be done a lot faster and less coolant come out. So let's get the pulley and the tensioner off. 15 and 15. Use the breaker bar to loosen them. I had a terrible noise around this, the dry belt, so most of the times it's the idle pulley that goes bad. Idle pulley is I think that's okay, but I'm replacing it anyway. What about the tensioner? Normally I'm listening to this with a stethoscope, but I forgot. I was going to replace them anyway because the belt was bad. So, and I think this factory stuff has never been replaced. That's what I think. Oh, can you hear this? That's bad. That needs to be replaced. But I also noticed that can you hear that? That's the alternator. The water pump is okay, but the alternator is noisy. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the tensioner to the left, that's GM or GM OEM factory tensioner, and the one to the right that was on the car is made in Canada. The other side, you see the difference in size? That means that the spring in the GM tensioner, it's a lot bigger than in the tensioner that was in the car. And the brand name on this one is Litens, made in Canada. Litens. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but I always put GM or AC Delco as it's called today. AC Delco parts on my car. And the fan clutch, the one that was on the car, is an aftermarket. I don't know if that KOR to the right means Korea, R&B Inc. And this is the fan clutch that was on my old Trailblazer. I don't know if it's been replaced or if they come with bare clutches from the factory. But I know Bear is a very good brand. It's about the same as Bosch. So they replaced the fan clutch in this car at least once, and they put it in an aftermarket. And you saw what happens with it. It wears out. So hopefully I get a couple of more years with the used one I had laying around. Let's put it all back together. So I didn't video when I put the tensioner and the idle pulley on there. I don't think that's something you want to see. It's kind of basic. So let's put the belt back on. Today's tip: run it around and leave the idle pulley for last. And you loosen the tensioner and it slides right over the idle pulley. For me, that was the easiest way. So now we got a new belt, new tensioner, new idle pulley. Let's put it back in then. Notice that when I put it back in, I have attached the fan to the fan clutch. When you take it apart, it's easier to get everything out if you disconnect it. Get the fan off the clutch. But when you put it back in, you need to have it there because you never reach the fan clutch to get it up. And if your threads are good, you can get it started on the water pump with just turning the fan. And it comes with it. See, like this. If your threads are okay, this is the fastest way. Now it's on there. Use the air hammer and just tighten it a little bit. Don't tighten it too much. Yeah, that's enough. And the fan is back on there. You know, I love these factory clamps. When you open them, I use a special plier for these clamps. So when you open them, they have a little locking tab. I don't know if you can see it on the video. There it is. You got a locking tab there that keeps the clamps open. And the best part with these, when you put them back together, I always put them in the same location where they were when I took them off. Like there. And there you go. This one didn't come exactly in the right spot. So I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Yeah, I know. I'm anal with this stuff. There. Less chance of leakage when it's in the same spot. So you just take this kind of big. Get a smaller one. This one maybe. Yeah. Put a screwdriver in here and just bend down. There you go. Don't keep your fingers in between. There. Same location. Let's put new plugs in it. So I started with removing this one. Not much to see. Loosen all the connectors because this car or this engine has a coil-on plug. No spark plug wires. So there's a coil-on plug. And when I do, this one was really loose. This one is a little bit tighter. So you gotta be careful and feel it, because it's easy to snap these bolts, to break them. And if you do, it's not fun to get the leftover out. This one is ooh, I'm too afraid to that one came loose. That one too. Need a shallow socket to get in here. Let's see. Yeah, that one come loose too. The front one is a pain because it's under this cable channel. So I got everybody loose except one. So let's see if we can get this one loose without breaking it. We can try this, see if it works. So, that's stuff you learn working on cars for over 20 years. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of plugs they put in here. If it's ever been changed. It's the same here. Loosen them very gently because it's an aluminum head. It's very easy to mess up the threads in the head. You do that, you're stuck in the garage. Well, they got AC Delco in them, but they got the old one for the Y965. It's like over 2 millimeters. Let's see if I can get it on my white. That's a lot of gap. The last one. That's the pain in the ass plug. They don't use the 3/8. Oh, this is bad. This one's got a leaking valve cover gasket. So oil is coming down in the spark plug hole. It doesn't go in the engine. It stays here with the spark plug. Anyway, most shops in Sweden, they don't have the 3/8. They don't use the 3/8. They use 1/2 inch. And when you have 1/2 inch, it's hard to reach the last spark plug because everything gets kind of too big and clumsy. So I've seen these cars where they didn't replace number 6 spark plug because they couldn't get it to it. They got the wrong tools and couldn't get to it. So they just leave the 6 unchanged. But I always use 3/8 on most everything. 90% of the time I use 3/8. It's much easier to work with and it's lighter. You can reach places where you can't with a 1/2 inch. So, but that was not fun. Replacing the valve cover gasket, that's a pain in the ass on these engines. You gotta take off the intake manifold and it's not something I want to do. Well, shit happens. Let's put some new plugs in here. New AC Delco 41103. That's the correct ones. And it's got a rubber in here for the plug, so I spray some silicone spray just to keep the plug from not. My lamp fell down. That's so the rubber insert doesn't get stuck on the plug. And I also put a little bit of copper. Make sure the plug doesn't get stuck in the head for the next time. There's one. Last one. These are iridium plugs, so you don't have to gap them. You're not supposed to because the point is very brittle. So if you try to gap these, you're most likely going to break them. So the last one, number 6, is a very tight area. So you got to be careful so you don't bump this electrode and get the gap too small when you put it in here. Make sure you can thread them down by hand all the way. That way you know they're not cross-threaded. Let's start with the most difficult one, the rear one. There, all 6 done. Put the coils back on. And I do the same thing here. Put a little bit of anti-seize copper. Paste, that way, remember, number 2 was kind of hard to get off, to loosen. So this way, if I need to replace a coil or a plug in the future, they won't be so hard to get off. A small ratchet and tighten it with your hand like this. It's more than enough. You don't need a half-inch ratchet and pull and tighten it for everything you can. This is just M6 bolts, so they don't need much. And it's easier to loosen them in the future if you don't tighten too hard. Put the plugs back on. And the connectors, they have a safety lock that you have to remove before you can get the connector loose from the coil. So put them back. You take this off with just I use a pick to take them off. There. Just put the air baffle back on, and we're done with the plugs.